And it sounds like he's on the mend, and we hope to see him at our very next meeting. So anyhow, I've got 7:18. I will call the meeting to order. And we have a single agenda item tonight, discussion of Chestnut Hill Farm Management Plan and Conservation Restriction with the trustees of reservations. And Melissa, you've been putting a ton of work in here, and I'm going to lean on you just to bring us up to date to our current status.
Sure. So I resent out today that most current management plan, I think dated 7/23 or 28. That included some of the discussions from the last time we talked with the trustees since the changeover with the pause of farming. So we kind of had that additional animal language, I'll say, as an addendum at the end, but with kind of the understanding that as of right now, that's not happening. So we're focusing on kind of what work will look like on the property, in this current climate and given the pause. So that's kind of pretty much where we're standing. I think, not a lot of the management plan has really changed since we first started discussing, especially in the last year. So, a lot of it was a lot of talk about the bobolink surveys and kind of got some supplemental information from the trustees, and that we've delayed the mowing until later in the year. And that has kind of been where we've been caught up for the most part. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I saw the letter from Pam Esty that you circulated. Thank you. That was good to read through. Let's see. I guess first, DA, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know you've been working behind the scenes with certainly with your own staff and also coordinating with Melissa to get us to where we are today. Would you like to give us a little intro?
Thanks, Ben. We don't really have a lot to say at this point. We feel as though this has been going on for quite a while. We're ready to put it to bed. We hope that we've answered all the questions that people have had. We've tried to be as accommodating as we possibly can be. What I will say is that, and I've said this before, is that this is by far the most complicated management plan of any of the properties that the trustees has on which we hold conservation restrictions, and certainly of any of the properties that we own in fee. So our interest is to move forward, and certainly as we make any changes at the farm, the Conservation Commission would be the first to know.
Thank you. Thank you. And I apologize for being a little bit out of the loop. I had to miss the last meeting. I believe it was in August when you had joined us. Actually, maybe even been earlier than that. But anyhow, I had to miss that meeting. So I guess for tonight, I think first maybe we'll go run through the commission members for questions, thoughts, concerns, and certainly speak with you, DA, and then open it up to folks who have joined us from the public. So with that, I have just, with a couple of concerns, just with the cessation, hopefully temporarily, of farming activities. My concerns relate to the barn and the store. I understand the store is, do I have it correct that the store is still in operation? I don't want to get that wrong. It's not. Okay. Okay.
No, the store is closed.
And the intent is to keep it closed until the trustees have decided which path forward they're going to take. Is that
exactly?
Okay. And Melissa, is I don't recall that being specifically addressed in the management plan. Is there something in there discussing that?
I don't think it is specific, but it's very clear that unless they have 51% of the goods coming from the property, which if they're not farming, then that's kind of
okay. Yeah, in reading Miss Esty's letter, I got a little confused on that topic. So thank you both for clearing me up. And then the last one is the barn, the new barn structure. And I was looking through the CR, again today for the umpteenth time. And I'm just having trouble, I think we were saying that it was used for, educational activities related to farming was sort of how we justified it, with respect to the CR. At this point, with the farming activities ceased, the addition of new buildings of no more than 10,000 additional square feet is limited to structures that are incidental to agriculture or animal husbandry operations, carried on in accordance with sound agricultural practices, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a little trouble with the current use of that building. That's my one concern that really stands out right now. So with that, the other commissioners, Kevin and Liz, any questions or comments or concerns you'd like to bring up?
I did, but I'll let Liz go. She wants to go first.
Sure. I think I think Ben, I agree with what you said. I think there's still questions. I think my major question is still around some of the access to the space. And so general public access for the purposes of passive recreation. And it feels like from the community, I'm still hearing, I've not been out there and done like the trail walking in those areas, but they feel like there's still areas that are blocked off or gates that are up. And I know we talked about that DA at some of our last conversations that, that maybe that wasn't the intention of some of the blocked off, or maybe there was signage that could be updated. And I was just curious about where we were on that. So I feel like for the community really felt like they had more access to this space. And I think we're hearing feedback on right now.
Thank you, Liz. And hopefully, from what reading through Melissa's email, sounds like we may be hearing an update later on from Mr. Francis regarding the trails and trail access. So hopefully we'll get some good news there. And anything else from you, Liz?
I mean, that was a major thing that was as related to the CR. I still think, and I know I said this last time, we had the same conversation, and I still think the community feels like they're upset by this. And so I know that you're like, basically, we don't have the money to do it right now. And I think there's this like, oh, you had the money to build this barn, and now we don't have the money to kind of have the continued usage of this space as we imagine it to be. And that's like active farmland with the animals present, as the community, I think, wished it to be utilized. So I guess I'm just going to say again that as a voice of the community in this space, and myself, my own, personal family usage of this space, I spent a lot of time there last year, and I have not spent any time there this year because it did not feel, we picked up our CSA. I think I saw Kevin most weeks picking up our CSA there. My kids would run around in that space, and I feel like it hasn't been as open to the community. And so I guess I know that you're making these decisions due to financial motivations, which kind of allow you to do it. But if there's an opportunity to reinvest in opening and moving forward with this space, it'd be appreciated. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Liz. And Kevin?
Yeah, so I went through it kind of fresh again because it had been a little while since I read it. And, I did have a couple of things. So Melissa dug out somehow miraculously the actual trail map. So it would be nice to get that added to the management plan rather than, the one that tries to approximate it. I guess I find the addition of the 2020 or preserving the 2023 plan as an appendix. I'm not sure if we were approving the plan, would that approve that appendix as well? Because I don't think we ever really got to closure on everything in there. I think we're close, but I think I'm wondering whether it would be better to remove that appendix and then have the, trustees come back if they decide to resume farming. I think longer term, if this stretches out, this pause stretches out indefinitely, I think we'd have to look at things like fencing and other things because I think those are probably hindering wildlife and they're not supporting agriculture anymore. We should, but again, I don't want to put up barriers to resuming, farming operations if in the short future and whenever that is, but if we're going years and years out into the future with those fences still there. And then one thing is the sledding hill. I want to make sure that that winter time access to the fields is available. I've heard issues where, but it might have been closed off or at least hard to find in past years with all the fences out there. So I think those are the things that jumped out at me.
Thank you, Kevin. So, DA, before we've got a handful of questions there, before we turn it over to the folks who joined us from the public. I just don't want to hit you with an overwhelming list of questions all at once, so let's pick away, you know, as we can here.
Okay, I can try to answer some of these, Ben. The concern about the use of the building, we've always been very straightforward about the use of the building, that it would be used for engagement, for education, for private events, and for community events. And that's exactly what it's being used for. We hosted a nature preschool this summer that really was just, you know, absolutely wonderful. And they loved the farm. They used the farm. They walked the trails. They grew things in the children's garden. They learned about agriculture and about the resources that a farm could bring to the community, both from an an agroecology perspective. They learned about soil. That was terrific. The barn has been used by outside groups 10 times this year. And those included and will include the Scouts. We did a farm education program with I'm forgetting the name of the institute, but it's an educational institute. We did a couple of private events. We've had a trustees finance committee meeting there, an advisory committee meeting there. So that's been the use. It has not been by any stretch heavily rented by the public, even though it's available if people would like to use it. Liz, your question about public access, the property continues to be open from dawn to dusk the way it always has been. The trails are open. Mike can talk a little bit more about the question with regard to the trail maps that Kevin brought up, and also communicated with Melissa about the finding of the additional trail up by the overlook. So I'm going to defer that one to Mike, but I'll try to check through these other ones that you've asked
Can I
about.
just ask the question about the kind of going back to the Ben thing about the
Yeah.
barn and like related to public access? Is there any intention to keep that barn open, or at least the restroom portion of it, so the community can have access to the bathrooms there?
No, there is
That will
not.
never be something that's going to be open to the
That-
public.
That's not something that we do at any of our properties where we have just public restrooms open to the public.
And there's not something that maybe we could do in this specific instance, kind of given some of the concern around the current usage of this space and the lack of delivering on the CSA and some of the other practices for the community?
Not at this point in time, no.
Is there something that would enable that?
I don't know. I mean, that's something that, as I said, it's not a standard practice for the trustees. We don't have we'd have to have security there. We'd have to have someone opening and closing restrooms. I mean, it's cleaning, and it's not something that we do on a regular basis.
Okay, I'm just looking for some good faith thing to try to bring back to the community with these conversations. So I'll look for some other opportunities. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Trying to
Yeah.
answer, trying to check off some of these things for you. So Mike can talk about the trails. So I'm just going to hold that for 1 second, and then maybe we can flip to him. The questions about the sledding hill, again, that's related to the trails. The sledding hill is always open in the wintertime. And then if there's snow cover. And then the question about the appendix, whether it should be there or not, that's something that we have no concerns one way or the other. So if you want to keep it, we're happy to keep it in. If you want to take it out, that's fine as well. Mike, do you have a second that you can talk about the
Sure.
trail?
Yep, happy to. So it sounded like there were questions about gates. I'm aware that of 2 gates that we actually opened or removed, off of the hinges to make it more inviting and welcoming to pass through at this time when there are no livestock there. If there are other gates that anyone is aware of being, closed, just let me know. and I'll take a look at those. What else? The trail at the top of the hill, the Overlook Trail. I will follow up with a formal letter to the Conservation Commission as required in the conservation restriction for the commission to review any changes to the trail network. So additions or rerouting or removal of trails. So that is in reference to our hope, our desire to create just a very short overlook loop trail. Right now, there's an overlook trail that takes you out to the overlook, but with essentially with this proposal, it would reinstitute the trail, the overlook loop that was on the original plan. And initially, I think going way back about 10 years ago, that trail really never really manifested. It didn't really exist on the ground. And at the time, again, through conversation with the Conservation Commission, we determined not to create that loop. And then any changes that resulted from the livestock fencing being installed, that was all reviewed with the commission at that time and reviewed and approved. And the alternate route that takes a hiker down the other side of that pasture is what was agreed upon and approved and established. So, but I look forward to meeting on site with anyone in the commission that would like to, once I send that letter off, and we can take a look at the proposed overlook loop. And also signage, we do have a full signage plan ready to send off to the printer, a few new signs and some others that would replace the existing signs.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Okay, so with that, we have several members from the public who've joined us here this evening. I see members of Select Board, Planning, Open Space. One email address I don't recognize, but probably should. Anyone from the public who'd like to speak this evening, offer a comment or ask a question, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and we'll promote you up. I see a hand raised from Freddie Gillespie first, and Al, we'll call on you after Freddie. Good evening, Freddie.
Hi there. Hi, Mike and DA.
Hi, Freddie.
I want to thank you for your continued commitment to getting this management plan right and the work you've done so far. I did want to say that when the CR was drafted, that loop trail was there because that's where we took people to show them the property and what they were getting for their $5 million in tax money to purchase the CR. So we had lots of open space led trail walks. So I know it was there at the time. I don't know what was there when you were gifted the property or why it came into lack of use, but I just would say that it was there. And then I had a couple of comments about the management plan for the farming operations, that taking out the 23 language, I think is a good thing. And I think Kevin suggested that when you start farming again, which we hope is sooner rather than later, that that you would be insert language that you're required to come to the commission to discuss what that's going to look like, because you don't have a farming plan now without that 23 language there. I'd like to hear about that because I still have the concerns about grazing, which is not, when I read the grassland grazing plan in the current language, it doesn't quite prohibit grazing in the bobolink habitat during nesting season, so that unless there's a requirement to come back and discuss with the Conservation Commission what would be allowed, I still have concerns that we originally raised a couple years ago. And I do believe that the issue over the private rental of the barn is still a concern for what the CR allows. Farming related, agriculture related, a lot of the activities you talked about sound wonderful. Having the nature camp and certainly having the trustees have board meetings or committee meetings there. But private, non-agricultural related activities like birthday parties and other activities like that, I don't think the CR allows it. It's really quite specific to farming, agricultural issues. I think that's something that the Conservation Commission, with their expertise, should really seriously look at if that is an allowed use. And if not, make it very clear why not in the management plan, because anyone reading the plan, I think, would assume that it's not an allowed use. And I think those are the two big ones, except for one little item is when you talked about signage, Mike, something that says where the entrance to the sledding hill is, because it sounds minor, but in the snow, it's really hard in that fencing to see where there's an opening. Maybe not for little kids, but I couldn't find it one day. It's not where I would think it would be, at the top of the hill where you bring your sled up, where we used to anyhow, bring sleds up and go down the hill. Now you have to go
Sure.
outside. So just a sign, winter
Yep.
sledding here. And I think though anything else is more minor about the trail. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thanks, Freddie. All right, Al, you had your hand up next. First, welcome.
Thank you. You can look at my ugly face if you wish.
Up to you.
No problem on my part. Yeah, so in June of this year, which happened every year, the select board meets and tries to set sort of goals for the coming year. And one of the goals that the board set was to see what the town could do to promote and encourage the return of agriculture to Chestnut Hill Farm. You know, when we spent the $5 million to effectively purchase the development rights, we were purchasing the development rights to a farm. And today we have land that doesn't really qualify as a farm anymore. And so my request is that before you sign off on this, that you come and brief the Conservation Commission, come and brief the select board on the current status of the CR and the activities on there, so that we at least understand what's going on, and also what, if anything, we can do to change the way we operate to encourage the return of agriculture. I will simply note that the city of Framingham today has more farms than the town of Southborough. And that seems to me to be a condition we ought to try and reverse. So I'd be happy to set up time for you either at the next meeting or the following one of the select board, but I'm requesting that you come in and give us a briefing.
Okay, thank you, Al. Certainly, it's a discussion the commission can have. I think ultimately the CRs, because it relates to open spaces placed under the care and control of the Conservation Commission, and we certainly welcome the involvement of the select board at any time. Perhaps we could arrange something along the lines of a joint meeting via Zoom or something like that. But the commission, I think our role in this is pretty well defined. I think we have some independence in the matter, and we certainly welcome the input and would be happy to discuss with you. I think an appropriate way of doing that would be if you folks wanted to join us at one of our meetings, or I have a feeling the commissioners would be willing to schedule, for instance, a special Zoom meeting at some point where we could all get together and have a chat about this. Those are my thoughts on it. If others feel differently, by all means, please join in. Okay. Is there anyone else here from the public this evening who wishes to join us, to ask a question, to make a comment? Okay, oh, no, that's it. Al, I see your hand is still up. If you wish to continue speaking, of course, we'd love to hear from you. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we have the request from Mr. Hamilton here, commissioners. And you know, on this particular matter, I don't feel particularly comfortable sort of being called in to explain ourselves. You know, I don't mean to put it in particularly harsh terms, but I'm certainly, for my part, would feel comfortable doing some sort of joint meeting, perhaps over Zoom or something like that. I guess there are only 3 of us here this evening out of the 5 currently of us impaneled. But among us 3, if you have a preference one way or the other, I would love to hear it.
I'd be happy to attend if needed.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be controversial. But I also think it's clear what, you know, the oversight is. So,
Okay. Thank you, Liz.
Ben, just to know, Al did put his hand back up.
Yep, just waiting for us to wrap up here on the commission, and then by all means, please promote Mr. Hamilton back up.
Just so we're clear, I don't question your authority. You have the property is on the CR is under your care, and but I think we need to take a step back and look at perhaps some larger issues,
Sure.
things that we could do that might make it more palatable for the trustees to resume agricultural operations. The one that I had discussed, at least in some portion, was related to liquor licenses and for the farm dinners, and providing some measure of flexibility there. I don't know whether there are other things that we could do that would make it more palatable. And so this is it's not a question of questioning your authority. It's a question of, you know, can we think outside the box that might be other things that would make the resumption of agricultural activities on the land more feasible and, frankly, you know, profitable for the trustees. And, you know, you guys are the ones that are closest to this operation. And so I'm simply asking, you know, I think the select board would like to understand what's going on, why agriculture has ceased, and then to have a discussion about what the town as a community could do to help return it.
Understood, and thank you very much, Al. I was copied on some correspondence that I think you may have been involved with, and I was actually very pleased to see that there had been some discussion of you know, going through the procedure to amend the CR. It sounds like the trustees want to do some things that do truthfully lie outside the confines of the current CR as it's written. And you know, I first suggested this, I'm going to say it was about 4 years ago, when there was some discussion about a potential violation of the CR, that you know, I would be very supportive to go through the process to amend the CR if it's in some way restrictive of what the trustees need to do. And I think, you know, there are a couple of things here. At the end of the day, you know, the town purchased this CR as a result of an awful lot of deliberation amongst a great many people in town, and spent a fantastic amount of money in doing it. You know, there are only 5 of us on the commission right now, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with only 5 people, effectively overriding the conservation restriction. But I would feel very comfortable in supporting the trustees in going through the process to amend the CR. There are certain amendments I think I would feel comfortable with, and this would give the community the same opportunity as when they purchased the CR to have the discussion. What does the community want to see here? What are they comfortable with? And I think that's the route to go through with some of this stuff. That's just my thought. I haven't had conversations with the rest of the commission on it. But yeah, that's where I am. And Al, I see your hand is back up. I'm going to call on you in half a second. If there's anything that either Kevin or Liz would like to add, I just want to make sure that you've got the time to do that.
Could you outline what the process would be to amend a CR?
Yeah, so first, because it's an interest in real property, it would have to go back, it would have to go to a town meeting. And we're having these about every 6 months these days. And it would involve the trustees, making a presentation. Certainly, I think the commission would welcome the opportunity to help them, even with maybe even preparing a warrant article. And going to town meeting. And if that's passed, then it has to go to, this is going to sound very daunting. It will require an act of the legislature. However, if this is something that's supported by the town, and we indicate that through passing a warrant article, and if there are no red lines crossed, when the Attorney General's review of it, which I'm sure there would not be, we have, right now, we have a state rep actually who's fantastic, and I think would help us usher this through the legislature. So it's not the quickest process in the world, but it's an easily achievable one. I wish it had been undertaken 4 years ago, but it's kind of an overused little expression. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So that's the process as I understand it. I think I've got it, at least in broad strokes, correct.
Thank you.
Al. I see your hand. So I saw your hand had gone back up.
Oh, yes, it has. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the process of doing a special act sounds worse than it really is. And it's fairly automatic unless you're trying to do something truly novel. I think there are things in the CR that would, for example, facilitate agriculture. I think, one of the things that comes out is the 51% requirement. And I know that in other CSAs and community agriculture endeavors, quite often the restraint is that it has to be produced within the state or within the county rather than on the specific piece of land. There are also places where, you can only sell what you raise, but I think offering flexibility on those terms would certainly be something that would potentially facilitate the return of agriculture. And I think, if we sit down and work together, there might be other items that we can find, and there may be things that are of interest to the trustees. It's really a question of sitting down and discussing it. Again, I did spend some time with town council on this subject, and we have a little more flexibility, at least according to town council, than we might think. But I think sitting down, I'm not crazy about overly restrictive CRs, because ultimately you end up with situations, where one generation seems to make rules for the next generation, and it's rarely works out as people intend. So I think sitting down and reviewing the CRs, talking to the owners of the property to see what things they might be interested in, and there's probably going to be a little bit of horse trading that goes on.
Agreed. And I would add to that, Al, the the barn, the Deerfoot barn, in particular, you know, the language of the CR is pretty specific about that, and I understand to make the farm work, the trustees are looking to you know, to use it to supplement that. And if we're talking about an amendment to the CR, I think the trustees host a lot of activities there that are very popular in the town. And I think some amendment of that in some way would get broad public support. And I would love to see this addressed in this particular way. I would genuinely love to. So thank you, Al. I've seen a couple of hands going up. I don't recall whose hand went up first. I apologize if I get it wrong, but DA, I'll call on you first, and then Deb, I will call on you next.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their really wonderful interest in the farm and in looking to find ways to restore farming. We are, I just want to reiterate for everyone that we are taking a pause. We are not abandoning farming at Chestnut. So I just want to be sure everybody's aware of that. Secondly, we appreciate as well conversations about the CR, but I also want to be clear that the trustees has not asked for an amendment to the CR. And that is not something that we have discussed. And my understanding of CRs is that when you do amend a CR, it's very difficult to make them less restrictive. Usually any amendment is to make them more restrictive. So I'm just putting that out there for folks. But this is a conversation that we would have to have with our land conservation experts, and it's not something that we have requested. So I just want to be sure everyone's aware of that. We do very much appreciate the spirit of cooperation that the select board is sharing, and obviously we appreciate our partnership with the Conservation Commission. We definitely have some challenges at the farm, and there are probably ways that those could be addressed outside of amending the conservation restrictions. So that's all I'm saying at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Deb, Melissa, if you could promote her up, please. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi,
Welcome.
good evening. Yeah, this is Debbie Demuria, 58 Flag Road. I'm a member of the planning board, but I'm speaking to you as a private resident. Well, actually, I'm very glad to hear this discussion about an amendment. I have to tell you, I'm not comfortable with amending the CR. I think the voters in Southborough all became very, very educated around this particular topic when the CR was, when we voted for it. And I think it brings into question, what is the power of somebody's vote if, it can then be rechanged. So I understand it would go back to town meeting, but I wouldn't be in support of amending it. But happy also to hear that it's not the direction that the trustees want to go into. I also want to just bring up my opinion about the 51%. I believe that's law. And, it could be that town council has advised one way or another about the select board's role in whether or not they're going to, ask for records about 51%, et cetera. But I believe we have other farms in town, and Southborough also has a history of asking other farms in town for their records to see if they've met the 51% threshold. So I think it's a slippery slope, and I'd like to see that kind of put to bed. I believe it's Mass General Law, and I just wanted to check with someone on the commission if you can just confirm that that is a requirement of the CR. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Well, it certainly is. It is a current requirement of the CR that if the store is in operation, at least 51% of what's sold there is produced on the farm. And that could only be changed via an amendment to the CR. Whether that limitation comes from Massachusetts general laws, I don't know. I had not heard that before, and it's something I'll certainly be looking into. I'm very curious myself now that you bring it up. Regarding, an amendment to the CR, were that to come to pass, I bring it up only because I'd seen it mentioned among others, and some of the issues here, I think that is worthy to be addressed. I don't see any other way to do it. So one possible path forward, but that's certainly not a decision that would be made here this evening by any stretch of the imagination. I see another hand up, Freddie.
Hi there. I'm not sure I introduced myself. Freddie Gillespie. I was speaking as the chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission that has been reviewing this management plan for going on 3 years now, maybe, and writing comment letters. So, and right now I'm going to speak personally because I've had private conversation with Whit Beals in the past and Pam Esty, his widow, and he informed me that 51% was a request of the family when they put the CR on their land. And as you know, every restriction has a dollar amount that goes with it when we're purchasing a CR. It's not just the development rights. It's a complicated negotiation where the property owner gives up something and asks for something, and it's back and forth. And there are dollar amounts associated with all of the rights that a property owner gives up. And one of the things she said, they wanted the 51%, and I believe she's not here, so I believe I have this correct though. They wanted that to keep it to be a local production of goods and to keep the farming alive and not to have it become, a mini store or whatever. And that maybe some local produced hand goods, like local soaps and things, pottery that we see craftspeople in the town making, but that it wouldn't become a store for other goods and services that are produced all over the place, not local. So that was something she recently told me, and she couldn't be here tonight. So I don't want to speak for her, but I just want to clear it up that I don't know if the state has a requirement, but that was a goal of the family who donated the land to the trustees and who were putting that CR on the property with the town. And so it wasn't just the town demanding it, it was the family asking for it, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Okay. So, of course, our purpose here this evening really is the farm management plan, and everyone correct me if I've got it wrong here. We've had a couple of concerns brought up, and Mike had some great news on the trails. I think Freddie offered some clarifications on the Overlook Trail, and I think that's something that's easily achievable. I think Kevin's suggestion is a great one, to remove that language, and that's something that can be addressed in the future. The sledding hill that Kevin also brought up, and we got a little bit of clarification on that from Freddie as she was talking. I saw Mike nodding his head. It sounded like the access to the sledding hill is something that can also be easily accommodated. The bobolink area, I think with perhaps a minor language change, especially during this time when there's no agriculture taking place on the property. I couldn't be more in full agreement that area needs to have protection during the breeding season in nesting season of bobolinks from grazing and mowing. And I think it's particularly easy to do that right now, especially when there's no agriculture taking place. And I think a minor language change in the management plan could address that. The last one, and this is just me, and I'm going to be asking Kevin and Liz when I'm done here, but with regard to the barn, I feel we are stretching the CR almost to its breaking point with many of the engagement activities. In saying that they are incidental to agriculture and animal husbandry. I can't fit my head around calling rentals for birthdays or weddings as incidental to agriculture or animal husbandry. I just can't make it that far. I'm only one member, but I've got trouble with that, and I wouldn't be able to support it. But I want to make sure first, I'm certainly not going to halt discussion, but first, Kevin and Liz, does it sound like I've highlighted the issues? Did I miss anything or overstep in any place?
No, I mean, I looked through the long list of activities, and I could commit to myself that most of them could fit with that barn, but the private rentals did still jump out at me as an issue. There was another one on there that was partnerships with community groups and local businesses. I wasn't exactly sure what involved that, what that meant as far as the use of the barn, but yeah, it was really the private rentals one that jumped out at me as not being really related to the CR as it stands today.
Thank you. And Liz, did you have anything to add?
No, I think some of the partnership is like probably the partnership with like the preschool, like the Forest Preschool, right? That's like the example I think of a local partnership, but I agree the private rental side of the house. I think what I was just kind of getting at earlier, it's a tough pill to swallow when there's other things that feel restrictive about the use of the space right now that are not as, I don't know. Yeah, I'm in alignment.
Thank you, Liz. All right, so DA, unfortunately, it's only the three of us here this evening, but certainly 3 of the 5 members, I think we are pretty clearly on the same page. I think with the exception of one issue, I think this is all very easily resolved. Yeah, so I mean, we're left with the barn issue, and if we, I don't know if we can find a way to connect the rentals for these special events with agriculture and animal husbandry. Just the black letter language of the CR, it's very clear, and it sounds like the other commissioners share my discomfort with just overruling the will of our community when they purchase the CR. If any comment that you'd like to make, it's certainly welcome, DA. I understand this is not what you want to hear, but we're trying to reach solutions here.
I understand that, and it's not what I want to hear. I'm representing the trustees, so I'm not in a position to make a commitment to that this evening. And would have to talk to our team about what that means. This is, this is the first time this has been brought up. So about private rentals, not about community groups and other activities at the farm. So why don't I get back to Melissa about that once I talk to our team.
Okay. The other, let's see, trails, sledding hill, bobolink area. These don't feel like a heavy lift to me. They feel easily resolvable. The trails and sledding hill, it sounds like
the trails we've already talked about, and we've said that we're taking care of that.
Yep.
Putting a sign to show where people go to sled is very doable.
Okay.
We've already committed to extending the time period where the mowing is not going to be happening in the bobbling field. And if you're asking us to now not graze as well there, should someone be there with animals, I would be willing to commit to that. Liz, I hope that some of this is come into play for you as well, that we are truly trying to cooperate with, everything that everyone is asking of us, but there's a point at which there are a couple things that I do have to check, and I'll get back with you on the barn rental issue, because that is something that was very clearly discussed as we were building the barn. So I think that some of this is the fact that farming is not currently happening there, and that may be coloring our perspective of the use of the barn, but certainly I'll get back to you on that one. But the other ones, I think that we'd be happy to incorporate into the plan.
Fantastic. Okay, I see one last hand up from Freddie.
Hi there, just quickly, Kevin had brought up the issue, I believe, that without if you're taking out the 2023 agricultural plan, there is no agricultural plan, so that there should be language in there if within the next, it's a 5-year plan. So when you do start up farming again, there should be some language that you will come back to the Conservation Commission to discuss what that is, because the plan is silent on it now, besides that you've given it a pause.
Well, the plan is not silent on it, Freddie. There's an agriculture section that talks to the agroecology work that we're doing, the pasture management, the field crop practices, and the fact that we've continued with the organic certification. So I think it's important that all of that continues to be in the agriculture, which is really agricultural operations, in the management plan. And then we would be happy to create, once we know what we're doing in terms of any sort of production farming, we'll put together a section like that and put it for the Conservation Commission to approve. Does that work?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I was thinking of production farming, not all the other areas that you are doing. And I don't want to downplay the agricultural activities that you are engaged with while you are taking a pause. So
Great.
I meant
Thank you.
production.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kevin, it sounds like that's what you had also envisioned too. Is this, it's DA's suggestion here sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, we had gone through and come up with, limits on the number of grazing animals,
Yep.
limits on where, when they could graze a bottling field and things like that.
Yep.
And we've lost all of that with the pause, and that's fine. But, if the pause if they were hit resume, we would like, to have those discussions again.
Yep, we'll be right back.
Moving forward. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, DA, if just for my part, if it could be pointed out that I am, I've got it wrong in some legal or logical sense here on my reading of the conservation restriction, I'd love to be told exactly how I'm wrong and taught. So I welcome to hear back from you. Look forward to it. Anything else from anyone on the commission or anyone who has joined us from the public here this evening? Okay. All right, it sounds like we have a plan going forward. With that, I'm just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Melissa?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.